All right, welcome back. Josh Beatar and Alex Goldman here for From the Stands. And today we're joined by a man who I've followed for many years, Kevin Iole, former man who was at Yahoo Sports for over 17 years. Kevin, thank you so much for giving us a bit of time this afternoon, mate. First things first, how are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate having me. I look forward to chatting.
Of course, man. Well, look, first thing I sort of wanted to touch on was, the fact that you are starting up your own site and everything like that. You've sort of moved on from Yahoo Sports. Um, I guess, why have you decided to sort of start keviniole.com now and sort of move on to that new venture?
Well, I mean, number one, they laid me off, right? So I got laid off. We had 40 people get laid off the day I was laid off. Um, and I had the first day I was like shocked. I put it on Twitter that I had gotten laid off, and I had so many people reach out to me, and I had a lot of job offers. I was like, wow, full-time job offers, you know, just part-time, all sort of everything, ranged the gamut. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then I started thinking about it and I said, I've never been able to do 100% of what I want to do. Like,
Mm.
my years at Yahoo Sports, it was a lot of what I wanted to do. But as an example, it's a general sports site that doesn't cater specifically to combat sports fans. And I said, hey, there was stories that I couldn't write, young prospects coming up that I maybe wanted to write about that I just couldn't because, the average person, they wanted to know about Floyd Mayweather
Yeah.
or somebody like that, a big name. And now I have the ability. What if my site does well or if it fails, it's 100% on me, and it's all my decisions, all my ideas. And so I like that idea, and I like the thought to saying, hey, you know what? I've had a really good career, and if I have to retire, I retire, but I can do this and I can make an impact. And I think I'll be able to really, I'm really excited about the website and the apps that I'm getting developed. The website is going to come out probably in the 20th or so of January. A little bit. I was hoping to have it ready before UFC 297. It doesn't look like it's going to launch before then. I had told the guys that are building the site for me when they said, "Oh, we could try to get it to launch before." I said, "I want it to be perfect when it comes out. So just if we have to miss that week, we'll miss that week and we'll come out later." And then there's going to be about 2 weeks after that, there'll be an app for Apple iOS and also for Google on the Google Play Store, and there'll be really good apps. And I think it's going to look good. There's going to be a lot of diversification on what I have. There's going to be written content. I'm going to cover mostly boxing and MMA. That's going to primarily fill most of what I do. But I'm going to do a little bit of bare knuckle boxing, and I'm going to do a little bit of the slap fighting. Probably slapping is just going to be, kind of getting my video and holding
Yeah.
the camera up and seeing what I get, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I'll have a boxing podcast. I'll have an MMA podcast. There's going to be forums, so I want it to be a site spot where combat sports fans can come and they can talk about, and if I'm not writing about what they want to talk about, they can create on my forums and they can talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. And so that as I started thinking about that and looking at it, it really kind of said to me, "Hey, this is the great idea, and this is what I want to do." I called Nick Khan is the president of the WWE, but back in the day, he was my agent, and so I had called him. He negotiated my first contract with Yahoo. Um, I called Nick for advice after I got laid off, and I said, "Man, I got all these phone calls. What do you think I should do?" And he said, "I'll be honest with you. I think you ought to do it." On your own. He goes, I think you're creative. You have a good work ethic. You'll be able to do a good job on it. And he said, if you can make advertising money out of it, you'll do really well. And then he promised to advertise on the show for me. So right before or on the site, before I ever did anything, I had the WWE as an advertiser,
Yeah, that's
right?
awesome.
Because of my relationship with him. So that really kind of, to me, just said, this is the direction I'm going. And then at that point, it was just, do I create a site and do I create an app? Like I could have gone, um, uh, what is the name? I'm drawing a blank on the name of the site now, and I hate to do it. Begins with an S, boy, you can write on your own. But anyways, whatever it is, I'm drawing a blank. I could have gone there, and they have a lot of writers that are on there, and I
Substack?
just Substack.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Why could I not think of Substack? I was saying Squarespace, and I knew that was a website builder. That wasn't it, but I did Substack, and they had reached out to me. And the guy at Substack told me, he said, "Dude, you can make a fortune just even if you don't work hard." And I'm like, "Really?" And then I've always been a hard worker. I thought, man, if I could. So I was considering Substack seriously. But then I talked to a couple other people, and I decided that if I create this product, I want the presentation to be good. And I think it's going to look really, really good. And it's going to be able to incorporate a lot of different elements. And so, you're going to get that, and there'll be notifications. So when I post a new piece of content, you'll get notifications on that and everything once the apps are out and running. And they scale really well. And the guy is really good. They look really good. I'm hoping to have fighter, like you can click on it if you want to search for a fighter, and you want to see Johnny Walker or Magomed Ankalaev, you can click on their name and see their fight by fight and all their stuff, kind of, we're calling them player cards, right? And trying to have all that kind of stuff available. So I think it's going to look really good. Now, if I can provide the quality content to fill it up, then it'll be successful. So it'll kind of depend on my lazy ass and what happens.
Yeah. So, Kevin, as we look sort of, at the first half of, 2024, we've already got sort of some great fights lining up. And, I wanted to get your thoughts on Ilia Topuria and Alexander Volkanovski. Topuria is a prospect that I've been quite high on for a while, even before his Ryan Hall fight. But at this stage of Topuria's career, do you think he has the skill set to be able to pose problems for Alex and even potentially cause an upset over the current champion?
I do. I think what I've seen of that kid, he's amazing, right? I think he's a really good, really talented fighter. And I think he has the chance to win. Now, Volk, I have such high regard for Alex, right? And I think he is a special fighter. My biggest question, if I knew there was no residual effect of that knockout loss to Makhachev, I would say I'm taking Volk, no question about it, and I'll ride the wave. But I don't know what Alex is going to be like. He's been fighting for a long time. He's been pushing a really fast pace, right? And he's fighting a tough guy who has a little bit of a unique style. So it's a challenge for him. I think Topuria definitely belongs in this kind of fight, and I think he's qualified to be there. And I think he's phenomenal. And so Volk is not going to get the kind of credit if he wins that he would get if he he had beaten some of these other guys that he had beaten along the way, right? He's got so many good wins on his resume. Max Holloway, chief among them, but Brian Ortega, being another one. But if this win, if he wins it, is going to be a huge win for Volkanovski. That's how good Topuria is.
Yeah, definitely. Kevin, just circling back to the MMA media space, just quickly. I know we have independent Helwani, and now we have independent Iole as well in the space, which is quite a cool concept. But I want to know from your perspective. You've been in the combat sports media space for so many years now, and I just want to know how you've sort of seen it and evolve and change over the course of your career, because there was a time where, and take us for example, I mean, we're an independent media site, and this year we gained credentials to the UFC. We covered UFC 293, and there was a time 10 years ago, 10 years ago, where if you weren't a major outlet, your Fox Sports, your radio station, your newspaper, you weren't getting credentialed with the UFC. Yep. Now we're seeing that more sort of happen, and guys like us are profiting from it and are gaining that access. So how have you seen it change over the course of your career?
I think it's more professional, and the quality there are more people that are good at their jobs and doing quality content than there ever been before, right? I don't want to get anybody mad at me on the boxing side, but I think the MMA media is far advanced past the boxing media. There's some good ones on the boxing side that are boxing specific, but there's not as many. Like, and I go to the press conference, and, it used to be you would hear these questions that were asking, you're just rolling your eyes, right? And, there was fanboys, and there was people that just, and now, they're asking good, intelligent questions for them. You still get the occasional, but that happens in the NFL. That happens just over yesterday, after the final game of the regular season. But I think the quality of the media in MMA has dramatically improved, and there's not only good MMA media out there, there's a lot of them. And to me, that's I'm really, what the hell was that? That was funny. There's a. Did you see that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happened before. We did an interview with Eric Nixick, and that happened before as well.
That was funny. That kind of shocked me. But anyways, but I think, like, and I'm happy about that, right? I'm happy to see that, because, that's creating, jobs for people, and that's filling a niche that might not otherwise, get filled.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, I have a bit of a different question for you. Do you think that a champion attempting the double champ status is becoming a little bit less exciting and almost less special as it used to be? As now, it kind of seems that as soon as a fighter becomes champion, without a resume of 3 to 4 title defenses, they're already calling for the champion in the weight class above them. Do you think it's becoming a little bit less special?
Yes, 100%. I mean, that's a good observation. And I think the Volkanovski one was such a good one, because, he, you talked about his resume, he had just kicked butt for how long, and he cleaned out the division probably twice before he tried to do it. Right. And I thought that first fight could have gone either way. Right. I had Makhachev winning at 3-2. But if you had Volkanovski winning at 3-2, I don't argue that, right? I thought it was that close of a fight, and so he deserved that fight. But you're 100% right. I mean, too often it was just, a guy wins a championship and now he's looking to move up and get a second one, and you can do that in boxing because the weight classes are closer and there's more titles. In boxing, but in MMA, especially in the UFC, it's difficult. And the one thing that you want is what the UFC has. You have the best fighters in the world at the top of your rankings. That's hard when you're every fight out, like, that you're fighting someone that is deservedly in the top 5, right? And that's who the champions face. That makes it tough. In boxing, even the best boxers, right? They have hard, and then they'll take a little, break and take an easier one and then come back. And so, your point is well taken. I think it's kind of lost, and it has to be the right circumstance, right? Somebody who's been around for a while, who's made a number of defenses, who's been a dominant champion. Like when Amanda Nunes did it, no argument with her, right? She clearly, and Cyborg was there. That was a great rivalry fight, 2 Brazilians, 2 big strikers, that made a lot of sense. Volkanovski made a lot of sense doing it, but there's a lot of them that don't make sense. And I think that, the fact that the UFC is beyond gimmick fights, right? They don't need to put a gimmick fight. So back in the day, maybe they might have needed to do that to try to sell, right? But now they got the best fighters in the world, and they need to just put on the best fights that they can possibly put on and not try to force things. And I don't think they do. I'm not trying to say they do, but I do agree with your assertion that, it's kind of time to just kind of rein that in a little bit.
Definitely. Kevin, we just had the great Brian Campbell on, and I just asked him about, his thoughts on UFC 300 and obviously where we stand right now. I think the main event is a little bit unclear, and even the co-main event, that sort of top of the bill situation is a little bit unclear. And obviously a lot can change between now and just a couple of days. We saw yesterday Arman Sarukian and Charles Oliveira got announced. But I guess, in your opinion, there's nothing really for me that stands out, but in your opinion, what can you sort of conjure up that would make some sort of sense of a UFC 300 worthy main event?
Yeah, when you look at it, and the fighters that are fighting right before that, make it like, what is happening? Where's the UFC 300 main event? Yeah. I mean, Dana's talking about, like, so he's saying 2 things this year. Number one, he's talking about the Sphere in Las Vegas, and I'm in Las Vegas right now. And this Sphere, if people haven't heard about it, just look it up. It is incredible, right? So Dana has said that he wants to put the greatest combat sports card on ever for that event. And then he's also said he wants to put the greatest card on ever for UFC 300. But he's got UFC 299 now. Did you look at all the fights on that card, right? I mean, UFC 299, you're going, oh my God. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like, and unless they somehow get Jones back, and I think Jones has a chance to be back and healthy. but getting a John Jones fight done takes a lot of work, right?
Mm.
And John Jones fights are not quick. That I think that's the one X factor out there, like a big star, Conor McGregor. I think I know Conor said he was going to fight what in June, and of course he's
Yeah.
not fighting in June. He'll he'll fight either at International Fight Week, which would be in July, or he'll fight on this card. I think he gets cleared. His 6 months in the drug testing pool
Mm.
will end the week before UFC 300.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you're allowed to train, obviously, and he won't be
Yeah.
fighting until 6 months in. So I think Conor McGregor might be your guy. Conor
Yeah.
McGregor and John Jones topping the bill. If that is
Yeah.
the show, I think that's a pretty good show.
What's up, guys? It's Josh here from the stands. And look, I know you're in the middle of a good little interview that we're currently doing, but I want to take a second of your time just to give you a quick little shout out to today's sponsor, Trainade. Obviously, they're big supporters of us, like we are of them. And today they're sponsoring this video. And look, I want to let you guys know about a little product they do. Their premium product, Trainade Hydration. It's the best hydration formula on the market, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. And look, if you don't believe me, ask guys like Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski, Leon Edwards. You ever heard of these guys? I mean, they're the top athletes in the world. And they're all taking Trainade Hydration. It really is the #1 formula in the world for hydration. And in the summer months here in Australia, I mean, it's something that I think everyone should be taking. And Trainade have been very nice to give us a discount code, a very healthy discount code as well. I mean, it's a nice little discount code. If you use the code FTS15 at the checkout, they will give you 15% off. We'll leave a link to their website in this description of this video. And yeah, check them out, guys. Please support them because they are supporting us. Cheers.
Yeah, for sure. Kevin, my question is, obviously we just saw the big news with, Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua, but, my question is, obviously, it's worked out Francis betting on himself, in terms of leaving the UFC, he's made a ton of money. He's about to make a hell of a lot more as well. My question is, do you think that we're going to see more fighters start to kind of bet on themselves in these negotiations with the UFC now? Whether it's that they, test the waters of free agency, whether it's they try and chase a fight in, another aspect of a combat sports. But do you think we could start to see more fighters bet on themselves after Francis's sort of journey since leaving the UFC?
Francis's journey is unique, in my opinion, right? And I, I'll answer the question first by saying I hope so. I hope you see fighters. I want to see the fighters maximize their earnings and make as much as they can possibly make. Now, I never liked Francis going to the PFL because the PFL had nobody for him to fight. And they still don't have anybody for him to
Yeah.
fight, right? Like,
Yep.
is there anybody on the PFL roster that you would say, I would be jazzed up to pay 85
Yeah.
bucks to watch Francis fight him on pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they would do that big in numbers with Francis fighting on ESPN against the guys that they have, let alone, on where people have to reach in their pocket. So he's doing the right thing going to boxing. But does he ever fight MMA again? I question whether he does. But he is a unique guy because he has that incredible power and he can do that. And the heavyweight division is at a kind of a interesting in boxing, interesting point in history where they are. And with the Saudi money coming in, would not be possible if the Saudi money did not come into boxing. And especially they love heavyweights and they're spending fortunes on it. Now, I'll say this. There's pressure on Francis this next fight, more so even in the first fight. Because I don't know if you guys watched the fight with Tyson Fury before. Yeah. Yes, he knocked him down, but that was a god-awful fight. You cannot tell me as a boxing fan that you watched that fight and go, oh my God, I'm intrigued by this. This is a great. They were both guys landing single-digit punches the whole fight, right? I mean, there was nothing happening, bar the one round where Francis knocked him down. And Francis, even before he knocked him down, I tweeted, I said, Francis looks better in his form than I expected. He wasn't wild. He kind of fought within a structure, So before the knockdown, I did say that. But the fight itself wasn't very good, right? And if the same thing happens, we have a lousy fight or Francis gets knocked out, then I think that eliminates, for the most part, Francis doing much in boxing anymore. And then it becomes, does he fight MMA or does he walk away? Because he's going to make a ton for that.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's going to make, but I know he will make more than he made for the first fight. And, the Saudis, they don't care about pay-per-view, right? So they're not cut in on the pay-per-view. And the pay-per-view in the United States for Fury and Ngannou did next to nothing.
Yeah.
So nobody was interested, right?
Yeah.
I think they'll be a little more interested at this coming time. But I think, I would like to see other fighters do it, but I think Francis is one of the few that has that, that knockout power gives him the ability to kind of cross over.
Yep, definitely. Kevin, last couple of questions, man. We won't keep too much of your time, but I just wanted to know, being a guy that's been in the space for so many years, reporting and covering the sport, what would be some advice that you would give to up and coming reporters, journalists, people that are trying to make it in the space, and really create a successful future for themselves within the MMA media realm?
I think ethics is a really big thing, and it doesn't get talked a lot about, but you have to be a person of your word. Somebody tells you something off the record, it's off the record. It's like you don't know it, right?
Yeah,
if they tell you you can use it, but you can't identify a source. But I think the thing to do is, depending on which way you're going to go, are you going to run a podcast? You want to do interviews like Ariel Helwani does? You want to do writing more like what I've been known for over my career? Do that, right? You have opportunities now. You guys are doing a great job. You're doing your podcast, and and very professional and very good interview. And I practice it, right? Just keep going out there, and just keep working at it. And look at yourself critically. Like, don't beat yourself up, but look at yourself critically. Like, if you write something and obviously proofread it before you publish it, but then, maybe a day or two later, go back and read it again and compare. If somebody else wrote on that topic, compare how your story was to their story and try to find out ways to get better. If you're doing this kind of format, ask your questions more succinctly and do more research on the people you're interviewing and be able to get, elicit the kind of responses, that'll be compelling, that people are going to want to hear. I mean, but I think, a lot of people are taking that advice, and a lot of people, because there's a lot of people doing a really good job in this space. And I think, when the internet opened up and it gave everybody a voice, at first I was like, great, I'm really happy. Well, then it gave people a voice who have no knowledge, and these people say stupid things on social media, and they make it a bad, hateful place. But people like you guys, and people like some of the people I cover fights with, around the world, that are part of the traveling MMA media, those people really, they've done it the right way, and they're doing a great job. And I think just look to some of those people as an example. Don't be afraid to stand up to power. Like, if you have to say something critical, but you're not ripping somebody just because you want to look like, hey, I criticized, you name it, Dana White, Bob Arum, whoever the person is, President Biden. If you're going to be critical of somebody, have facts and have the courage of your convictions. Stand by what you said. Make sure it's supported. Do your best to get comment from the other side, right? And then, but go out there, and as long as you do that, and you do it with ethics, and you do it with passion for what you're doing, people are going to recognize, and you're going to grow in the industry. But to just wrap it up, a short question with a long answer, I would just say, practice it a lot, work at it a lot, because it's a job of a lifetime that you're going to continually evolve and get better at.
Yep.
Yeah. Last question from us today, Kevin, and last one from me is, as we look to 2024, I'm curious, who are some fighters that you feel can really break through to sort of, become one of the more recognized names in MMA today in 2024? Which fighters do you think can sort of break through that ceiling?
Well, I think he's a champion, but I think Leon Edwards isn't as popular as he should be, right? And I think Leon Edwards is going to be a guy that is going to take that next step. You're going to see him, and he's probably going to fight Bilal Muhammad. That's going to be a very tough fight for him. But Leon, what he said, what I liked was, hey, I want to come back quickly. And if he fights in April against Bilal Muhammad, then he wants to come back and fight on International Fight Week in July. And so a guy that's going to be active and going to do something. I think Erin Blanchfield is another one that has a chance on the female side. I think Erin Blanchfield has looked really, really good, and she's positioned herself. And I believe she's fighting Manon Fiorot. Is that in Miami?
Yes. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big fight for her. But I like Blanchfield as a fighter. I think she's a really complete fighter. And on the female side, she's somebody that's a non-champion that I look to and say, wow, she should come. Another guy that I like, and I've heard mixed feelings about him from other people, but I like Muhammad Makayev. Right. I think the flyweight division is really phenomenal. I mean, there's so many good flyweight fighters in the world, and it just blows my mind how close they came to killing that division, and now how many good fights on a consistent basis there are at 125. But I think Makayev, he showed a lot in that last fight. He had some vulnerability, but he fought out of tough positions and he came back and won. And so he's another guy that I like, and I think Muhammad, could end up being have a pretty good 2024.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Kevin, thank you very much for joining us today, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. I speak for both Josh and myself that, as someone like yourself who's, been in the scene now for a while and that, we've followed your work for, a long time. It's been an absolute honor to have you on, man. Wishing you all the best with KevinIole.com. Guys, please go check it out once it's up. And yeah, man, we'd love to talk to you again later in the year.
Anytime. I appreciate you guys. Good luck. Doing a great job. And I'm really thankful that you had me on. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks very much, man.